Vikir, who was holding the gold coin, stood up and with a serious expression made it clear that one thing was certain. Meanie Pin's attention was fixed on the coin and his eyes filled with surprise and confusion, leaving him in shock. The cave was filled with null corpses. The mysterious woman reached the entrance and began to observe the corpses in silence. The entrance to the secret treasure room was hidden in a part of the cave. Our boy revealed that the person who was using this place as storage was someone powerful who had the confidence to kill all the monsters and take the gold coins. Meanie Pin began to examine the coins carefully without knowing if Vikir meant that all this loot had been stolen from a bank. Vikir nodded, since otherwise it would not make sense for someone to be able to get these coins. With a gaze full of fear, Vikir began to imagine a newspaper, and remembered that he had recently read news about the robbery of a bank. He remembered it well since he himself had been the one who had written the article. He knew that a copycat of the Hound continued committing crimes. That guy had destroyed important facilities in the imperial capital only to then disappear and take all the riches that were inside. Among those places there was also a bank. Moreover, all the witnesses had been murdered. And at the crime scene only the footprints of high heels and marks that seemed to be made by a gigantic snake were left behind, and from there that nickname had emerged. Just then, the mysterious woman drew her whip and swung it forcefully. She tried to attack Vikir, but our boy reacted in time and, moving his head to one side, dodged the attack without much effort, causing the whip to hit against the wall of the cave. The whip left a mark that looked like it was made by a snake. Instead of panicking or feeling fear, Vikir's eyes began to shine with calm. Meanwhile, on the other side, Meanie Pin turned around and his eyes widened in surprise and terror. The mysterious woman picked up the whip and began to walk toward them with elegance. She grabbed the whip tightly and couldn't help but get angry upon seeing that rats had gotten into her coin box. Upon hearing this, Meanie Pin couldn't help but go into shock and feel somewhat confused. Our boy quickly realized that this woman was Oroberos. She clenched her fist tightly and a smile spread across her face. While his eyes were shining with seriousness, Vikir's attention focused on the mark left on the wall by her whip. Realizing that the marks, which seemed to have been made by a gigantic snake, were actually marks left by a whip, he also noticed that she was using magic to distort her voice. With a smile, she extended her hand and couldn't help but feel confused and asked if finding her coin box was bad luck or good luck. With eyes shining with rage and hate, she began to stare fixedly at Vikir and Meanie Pin. Her attention was fixed on Vikir, and she couldn't help but grip the whip tightly since she didn't know what he was doing here. Vikir's eyes filled with confusion, leaving him in shock. With a gaze full of fear, Meanie Pin prepared to draw his sword. Our boy's mind filled with surprise, and his attention was fixed on her since he noticed that suddenly she had begun to become aware of something. He didn't know if she knew him. Oroberos put her hand on top of the mask and couldn't help but laugh at the thought that she had good luck. Her eyes began to shine with malice, and an excited smile spread across her face. She couldn't believe that Vikir had entered by himself into her coin box. She began to use her power, causing a powerful mana to start emerging from her body. Meanie Pin drew his sword without knowing what was happening. Vikir, who was standing behind, started observing her and instead of panicking, remained calm, realizing that her mana was intense. She was stronger than a graduator. Meanie Pin, who had a low graduator rank, wasn't going to be a match for her. His eyes began to shine with determination since he knew that it was him who had to fight against her. But he was afraid, since if he showed his true power to someone who already knew him and let them escape, the danger was going to increase, so he didn't know what to do. While Oroberos' body was releasing an intense aura, with a serene gaze, Vikir began to ponder in silence. Meanie Pin turned around and his gaze fixed on Vikir, making his eyes widen in confusion. Realizing that our boy had many things on his mind, Vikir began looking at the ground. It was true that although he was a genius revered as a hero, facing Miss Oroberos, who was stronger than a graduator, was going to be terrifying. Meanie Pin stood in front of Vikir and with a sincere expression mentioned that at this hour the Imperial Guard would be patrolling around the base of the mountain. Upon hearing this, Vikir came out of his thoughts and his eyes widened in surprise, leaving him somewhat confused. Minipin drew his sword and began to imbue it with his mana, making golden mana appear around his body, clenching his teeth with a gaze full of determination. He promised to do everything possible so that Vikir could reach the entrance of the cave, and then escape and call the Imperial Guard. Vikir was somewhat confused. While Minipin's eyes were shining with confidence, with a smile he made it clear that for him it had been an honor to meet Vikir, even if it had been for a short time. Without wasting any more time, Minipin filled himself with determination and began to charge toward Oroberos. Using all his strength, he grabbed the sword and prepared to attack. As he was slowly getting closer, Oroberos remained still. Minipin swung the sword forcefully, but to his surprise, Oroberos reacted in time and dodging the attack and causing his sword to hit the ground. Seeing this, Minipin couldn't help but grit his teeth and feel furious. He didn't know what was happening. He swung the sword forcefully again, but Oroberos jumped back and dodged the attack once more, making his sword hit the cave wall. She began to imbue her mana into the whip and felt excited to see that this guy had gone crazy. Just before Minipin could react, she attacked with a fierce lash, hitting him under the jaw and making him lose consciousness. The attack was so powerful that it made a deep cut on Minipin's face. He began to retreat until several seconds later, he stomped the ground forcefully. Minipin started to bleed and dropped his sword, which fell to the ground. His body began to tremble. He had lost consciousness for a moment due to the blow. He felt as if his flesh was being torn apart and his bones crushed by that whip. Even though both were graduates, the skill gap was very large due to the difference in rank. Eyes full of rage, Minipin began to stare at her. Then he put his arms in front of his face and began to concentrate, causing golden mana to emerge from his body. Oroberos decided not to stand idly by. She attacked again several times using the whip. Her attacks did quite a bit of damage to Minipin, causing small cuts all over his body. While the whip was tearing his flesh apart, Minipin stood firm and thought about Vikir. Our boy was a person who one day would become a sword master, and for him it was a shame that Vikir died in this place. Then a smile spread across Minipin's face. Upon seeing this, Oroberos' eyes filled with fear and confusion, leaving her in shock. With eyes shining with rage and determination, Minipin lunged at her and prepared to attack, since his mission was to die protecting Vikir in this place. But just then, Vikir asked him not to waste his life, and then launched spider silk which stuck to Oroberos' mask, making her panic. Upon seeing this, Minipin clenched his teeth tightly, not knowing what was happening. Oroberos put her hand on top of the mask and felt furious as she didn't know what this sticky thing was, but she was aware that she had to remove it quickly. While she was distracted, with eyes shining with rage, Vikir appeared behind her. Just before she could take another breath, Vikir gave her a strong kick in the ribs. The blow was so strong that she clenched her teeth and started to bleed. Seeing this, Minipin's eyes widened in surprise. He couldn't believe that Vikir was so strong. Vikir's kick made Oroberos' body crash against the cave wall, creating a large curtain of smoke and making the whole mountain shake. Resting his hand on Minipin's shoulder, our boy praised him for being strong. Minipin turned his head toward him and his eyes widened in surprise. He couldn't believe that Vikir was praising him again. With her mouth full of blood, Oroberos put her hands on her back and couldn't help but grit her teeth according to her. The power that Vikir had was not normal. Minipin's body was full of wounds and he couldn't walk. Vikir carried Minipin's body on his back and his eyes began to shine with seriousness. He knew he wouldn't be able to defeat Oroberos with just one blow, but he also couldn't show either her or Minipin the realm of Swordmaster, so he decided to take this opportunity to leave. Vikir carried Minipin on his back and began to walk toward the exit of the cave. Oroberos, who was sitting on the ground, asked where he thought he was going. A few seconds later, they reached the exit of the cave and could see the beautiful moonlight. Just then, with an arrogant gaze, Vikir turned around and advised her to run away quickly since soon they were going to return to the cave along with the Imperial Guard. With her body trembling, Oroberos placed her hand on top of the ground and couldn't help but feel furious. All Vikir's eyes were shining. With a smile he made it clear that if she was planning to touch his coin box, then she should be prepared to suffer the consequences. He said goodbye to her, Oroberos clenched her teeth and cursed Vikir under her breath. The only thing she could do was call Vikir bastard. Several minutes had already passed and Mini Pin had lost consciousness. Under the moonlight, Vikir, who was carrying Mini Pin on his back, arrived at the forest. He couldn't help but smile, since for him this was incredible. He had thought that he had lived enough. But there were still many things about himself that he was learning. Vikir began to remember what Mini Pin and Chihuahua had done for him in the past. And by doing this, the memory of himself from his past life came to his mind. Under the moonlight, Vikir began to walk toward the place where the Imperial Guard was patrolling. Mini Pin's loyal appearance reminded him of himself from the past. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,